Eurasian water milfoil is an invasive plant that's been growing in North Country waters for decades. It hurts the lake or river's ecosystem. It also gets in boats, propellers, and it's kind of gross to swim in places where there's a lot of milfoil. So it's a threat to tourism on many lakes. In Lake George, they actually send divers underwater to pull the milfoil out by hand. We join a crew on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Long Run Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor in Lake Placid, providing comprehensive wealth management, retirement, and financial planning solutions. LongRunWealth.com. And the Devlin Inn and Suites, Lake Placid, welcoming families, athletes, and groups to the Olympic Village, offering Adirondack mountain views and dog-friendly accommodations. TheDevlinNY.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Wednesday, August 6th. First up, New York has implemented changes to state laws that address how evidence is shared ahead of a criminal trial. It's a process called discovery. Governor Kathy Hochul joined with public safety officials in Albany today to celebrate the changes.
Common sense discovery rooms are now the norm. We champion them, and they're to take effect today all across the great state of New York. So yes, that does deserve a round of applause. It was a long, hard-fought battle.
New York's discovery laws were reformed in 2019 to benefit defendants, but the changes became a successful anti-crime talking point for Republicans and a primary sticking point during protracted state budget negotiations earlier this year. Hochul says the 2019 laws were burdensome on prosecutors and led to cases being thrown out on technicalities, endangering crime victims. A significant cluster of an invasive plant has taken root in the St. Lawrence River near Ogdensburg. The invasive water chestnut forms dense mats of leaves on the water surface and makes boating and fishing more difficult. It's been found in Tibbetts Creek Bay near Ogdensburg, along with a couple of other bays in the area. St. Lawrence University biologist Brad Baldwin says water chestnut first appeared in the Oswegatchie River in Heuvelton about 5 years ago. He says it was inevitable that it would make its way into the St. Lawrence after flooding last summer.
We suspected it was going to get worse this year because that would have been a big pulse of current to probably take down seeds from the seed bank that has already been established at Heuvelton.
Baldwin says scientists are still trying to understand how invasive water chestnut impacts the ecosystem, including important fish spawning areas. But he says he's hopeful that it can be eradicated.
Because we maybe have jumped in time and have gotten enough grant money to actually take action. So it's going to take us a few more years, but I'm actually pretty optimistic we can turn the corner and, sort of reset the clock.
Baldwin says locals can join in the fight if they see invasive water chestnut in the water. He says pulling the tops of the plants with flowers can prevent them from reproducing. Lake George has been fighting Eurasian water milfoil for decades. It's a serious threat to the massive tourism economy there. Recently, they've used a chemical that kills it. But still, every summer, crews of scuba divers take to the water to pull milfoil out at its roots. Anna Williams-Bergen takes us out onto the lake for today's North Country at Work story.
It's a beautiful day on Lake George. The sun is shining, there's a light breeze. It's exactly the kind of weather that brings thousands of tourists out to boat, swim, and camp here each year.
We're heading up to Red Rock Bay, which is a beautiful bay up in the Narrows Islands, and that's where one of our dive crews are harvesting milfoil.
That's Dave Wick. He runs the Lake George Park Commission, the state agency in charge of keeping this lake clean, healthy, and accessible to visitors. The dive boat bobs in a small cove. Pontoon boats filled with vacationers dot the bay.
How we doing, Ben?
On board, a machine engine hums along, pumping air to the diver and sucking up the milfoil. Cousins Ben and Wesley Sheldon run New Water Marine, a commercial diving company that's been pulling milfoil from Lake George since 2018. The two dive in shifts. Right now, Wes Sheldon is underwater. He pulls out the milfoil plants by hand and feeds them into a big gray tube for safe transport up to the boat.
a suction system. It works on a similar system like a fire truck when they have to pull water out of a pond or something.
While his cousin dives, Ben Sheldon keeps an eye on the big metal table that's loaded with wet plant matter.
Well, it's kind of a spaghetti-colored pinkish stalk that has little, almost pine-looking green leaves coming off the side of it. I don't know, there's a more scientific way to explain that, but...
Eurasian water milfoil was first detected in Lake George in 1985. It forms dense carpets on the lake bed, edging out native plants, reducing water quality, and making it harder to boat and swim. Divers have been pulling milfoil out of Lake George since 1986, just a year after the invasive weed was discovered there. Dave Wick says the key is to get the roots.
This is a perennial plant. If you don't get the root mass, all we're doing is mowing the lawn.
Wick gestures at the table of pulled milfoil.
This whole thing is comprised of the white roots and the green upper plant mass, so we know that this site is going to hold up really well next year.
Diving for milfoil is working in parts of the lake. Many beds, like the one here, are smaller and sparser. But it doesn't always work, and it's time-consuming and expensive. It's cost about $9 million since efforts started in the 1980s. But hand harvesting is no longer the only tactic. Last year, the Lake George Park Commission started applying the herbicide Procelicor after years of debate and controversy. But those treatment sites are limited, so divers still play a big role in removal. The Sheldons dive in shifts, switching on and off throughout the day.
It's a long dive. A typical dive is, maybe an hour, hour and a half, and what we do is, 4 to 8 hours, depending on if you're shorthanded.
Ben Sheldon is from Vermont. His dad was a dive instructor, so he grew up in the water. Now in his mid-30s, he's been diving for about 20 years. As far as work goes, he says you couldn't ask for a better office.
As dive shops became less of a popular thing in New England, we moved into other ways to get paid diving.
The Sheldons first came to Lake George about 15 years ago to work on a project combating invasive Asian clams. They started suctioning milfoil in 2018, when these beds were even bigger. Ben Sheldon says this work is about something deeper than just getting paid to dive. It's also about stewarding the environment they rely on.
Because we were divers at a young age, we had a real deep appreciation for all the lakes that we've worked at. A lot of places, the water quality has been reduced due to the milfoil. It lowers the water quality and the visibility for a diver, so it's something that we kind of have like a personal care for.
As afternoon approaches, West Sheldon is still underwater pulling milfoil. They've got hours of work left before it's time to bring their milfoil catch to shore for safe disposal by the Park Commission. Lake George's water is a crystalline greenish blue. It has a clarity and sparkle that stands out from many bodies of water in the North Country. In parts of the lake, you can dive up to 40 feet and still see. That's a big deal, and it's rare.
It's one of the few remaining really beautiful bodies of water, and it's definitely worth our time.
So Sheldon is working to keep this water healthy, not just for himself, but for the thousands of people it brings to the Adirondacks each year, and for the generations to come. For North Country Public Radio's North Country at Work project, I'm Anna Williams-Bergen on Lake George.
Great photos and video of the underwater milfoil pulling in action. You can check them out at ncpr.org. Music today by Caitlin Scholl of Lake Placid and Oscar Sarmiento of Potsdam. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.